Yo, what's good, YouTube? So first, I just want to introduce myself, as it's my third video on the channel so far. Now this is going to be a more personal vlog, just about who I am, why I started the channel and my journey. I'm 24, I live in Australia. I'm a CEO of a swimwear company. I've just started up a streetwear company. I've also been in sales and e-commerce when I was quite young. My very first Bitcoin trade was when I was about 18 years old. I was into crypto since I was very young. Now, once I got old enough to be able to sign up for trading platforms and exchanges with ID, I did my first trade. It was around $1,500–2,000 per Bitcoin at the time. Now, I just chucked in a couple $100 on a long. At the time, I did not even know what a long or a short was, what was the difference, what was going to happen. I really just watched a few YouTube tutorials on sort of how to do a trade. It was on Plus 500. Now, once I did that trade, went to bed, did a few other things, and then I woke up the next morning and I'd made $400, and I didn't really know what I did. I didn't know how it happened. So I just closed that trade. I did a few other trades that were profitable as well, but because I knew what was sort of happening, I didn't just leave it be. I was consistently watching it. After making another $100 here and there, I sort of just left it be for the moment. And then years and years later, so I would have been 23, it was just before I turned 23, just before my birthday. I actually remember it was about a week before my birthday. I was in a pretty rough patch of my life. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. The traditional 9-to-5s have never been for me. So, we are who we are. So I just learned who I was and went my own route. I was doing little hustles here and there. I'd flip shoes. I just had all sorts of different businesses. But once I really needed to knuckle down and sort of get things happening, I was homeless at the time. I decided to get back to the things that were making me good, quick, easy money, because I needed that at the moment just to get straight off the street. I went and did a good amount of research just on what trading was and understanding just the basic fundamentals and the concepts of it, what a long is, what a short is, resistant lines, support lines, just the basic fundamentals. After about 2 weeks or so of watching like the moon and Satoshi Stacker every day, no matter where I went, I was on my phone watching these videos. My missus hated it, but after a couple of weeks, it was mid-June last year, right as crypto was popping off. It was at a pretty good spot, but I'd been in cycles for a few years since I was a kid, so I understood that these cycles, these highs, don't last. After a bit of research, understanding where we were at in the market at the time, I went in on a short. I put in about $180–200 Australian roughly at the time. I put it in on a short on Binance. At that time, you could leverage your trades up to 125x. So most people, it's very risky as well. It's very risky and very stupid. So most people do max 10x leverage, and then depending what your margins are, things like that. I didn't really understand like bare of that. I really understood, what's a long, what's a short, when's it going up, what's going down, just the basics. So I went in with the highest leverage I possibly could. Over the next day, I just kept doing my thing, doing my other hustles. I was watching it just slowly decline, going in the direction I thought it was. And I was happy with that. I was making money just straight off the bat. Instead of letting it ride out, it's pretty silly as well, I was reinvesting the profits, the unrealized profits. I was taking out of the margin and putting it into the trade. So it can get a bit confusing if you're not too sure on how trading and things like that work. But essentially, as my profits were going up, I wasn't leaving myself that room for when it dips back down for me to just, lose a bit of money. It was making it so as I made money, I was putting it back into the trade to make more money. But at the same time, my position was being reduced. So amount that the position could move without it liquidating was getting smaller and smaller. But I didn't understand any of that at the time. I didn't really know what. I just saw, damn, I'm making money. I'm putting this back into this. This is working. So the first night, I didn't sleep. I was just doing other things as well. I was just laying there next to my missus. She was just fast asleep. I'm just sitting there, and as it's dipping down, pumping back up a bit, I'm putting more into the short. So then when it drops back down, I'm making even more, and it's compounding as it's going. Each little dip down, it was compounding more and more. So I made the trade in the afternoon. I was up all night. Now at about 6-7 in the morning, my missus woke up. She was working at a cafe at the time. She had to jump up and go to work. Now she turned over, she looked at me and she's like, "You haven't been to sleep, have you?" And I was like, nah, I just made 7 grand last night. And she's like, what? I took my phone around and I showed her the trade, I showed her the position. And at the time I was about $7,500 in profit. So the position was at about 7,500 to 8,000. So I was up a good amount. She went to work. I just kept doing my thing. I just went about my daily routine, just glued to the phone, just absolutely glued to it. Now for the next couple days, I let this position run. The first day, I just did my normal day. I was pretty gassed. I was happy. It was maxing at about 10 to 12 grand. That night, I had a pretty chill one. I ended up passing out pretty late. Had a couple hours sleep. Woke back up the next day. I was still in profit. Was cheering. Stacked a bit more into the position. I wasn't thinking about, my exit strategy, about where I was going. You know what I mean? I was just gassed that I was making money off the trade. So the position was really highly leveraged. And it had about $8,000 or so in the position and $4,000 backing it. So I had my neck probably stuck out. I was playing it risky, but that's how we do it. No risk, no reward. You got to risk it for the biscuit. So that night, I chucked more back into the trade, and this one candle just popped down. And then as I watched it run down, I was in shock. And I switched over to the position screen instead of the chart screen, and I was in 19 grand profit. So it was a 19.5 grand position, and I was absolutely gassed. Like, no joke, I've never made that kind of money that quick at the time. So I was just over the moon, dude. Went and got my roommate, and I was like, bro, look at this. Like, no cap, look at this. It was crazy. It was crazy. So then that night pushed on. It was still dipping. It was going low. It was going up and down. It was on the bottom of about $20,000 from like the 50,000 highs that it had last year. I honestly thought it would go down a little bit more, so I was like just holding steady. I got diamond hands, mate. Like, I'm just holding. And then over that night, there were a lot of pumps coming in, and I was thinking, this might be the actual bottom. Like, maybe I should just dip, just take my bag and just be happy with it. But I held tight, but I fell asleep that night at really early. I was knackered. I'd been up for days. I'd only had probably 3-4 hours sleep in the past 3 days. So pretty early, about 8-9 o'clock that night, I passed out, and then I woke up the next morning, still on the couch, same position on my phone. I was like, oh, my trade. Open it up, switch over to the screen, nothing in the account, nothing. Night before, before I fell asleep, the whole wallet, the whole position, it was about $21,000 or so, pretty much one whole Bitcoin. So I'd made one Bitcoin that night, and I was still in shock. I was like, damn, am I dreaming? Like, did that actually just happen? And I went back into my history, into my trade history, and then I saw at about 2 a.m. there was a huge pump, and it absolutely liquidated me. Everything gone. And then my missus had already gone to work as well by the time I'd woken up on the couch again. So it was a fun story, explained to her what happened when she got home. It was a good lesson. It was a really good lesson. So I did need that sort of, that boost of confidence at the time. I was doing it really, really rough. I'd pretty much just gotten off the street, gotten myself a place in a share house with my missus. So things were going for me, but it's hard to find that self-motivation to tell yourself, I got this, like, things are going to be good, I got this. So having that social proof, that proof in the pudding that you can do it, it really helps yourself. It helps you mentally just be able to push on every day. So it was a huge L, like the biggest L probably to this day I've taken. I probably had one bigger L that I'll get into in another video. So make sure you like and subscribe. But everything happens for a reason. I'm happy that I got the opportunity to learn. After that, I ended up just diving deep into market analytics, just candle patterns, everything I could. And I was trading for a couple months after, but once I sort of clicked on the way the game worked and the fact that only 1% of day traders, so people who trade on a daily for a living, are profitable. And it's like gambling at the end of the day. It's not a business model. So I grew up a bit. I took that knowledge, I funneled it into other things. At the end of the day, it's life, as long as you can just cop it on the chin, keep moving, you're sweet. So that's my yarn for the day. I appreciate you listening. I'll catch you next time.